Hello and welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast. I'm your host, Fiona Kane. Today I have a guest and we're going to be talking about the wild west of social media. His name is, now just be kind to me about this one. I'm going to try and pronounce it right, but it's Michael Furcciniti. Is that right, Michael?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Got one of those names that can be pronounced a few different ways, or is it just like there's the Australian way of saying it and there's the way that people, that you actually say it?
That's it. I mean, you lose people if you spend 10 minutes trying to explain how to pronounce it. So, whatever works.
Yeah. So, Michael, the reason that I've invited you on today, besides the fact that we've met a few times and we've had a coffee, and I feel like we're quite, we're maybe not best friends, but acquaintances, friends, whatever. Uh, you said something on LinkedIn the other day. You were sort of showing some videos and some Instagram videos and things, and just talking about like this is what your kids are really seeing, and this is you can't really stop it, but this is what you might be able to do, strategies, whatever. So I suppose it's kind of like that. Uh, I think what you were saying to me before we got started is, we were talking about like, the beginning when we just said the wild west of social media is a bit of a wild west. And so I don't think we can make it go away. So I suppose the question is,
Mm.
what can we do about it? But before I even start there, I'm very rude. How about you just tell us a little bit about who you are? We'll start there and then we'll get launch into the conversation.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Michael. I do social media marketing for a living.
Mhm.
Um, I suppose my interest in this particular topic is, or has been piqued by the kind of work that I do, but also just how long I've been using social media myself.
Mhm.
I don't, I have kind of tertiary qualifications in marketing and so on. But I think there's nothing like being raised by the internet.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of kids of my generation have seen a lot of things. And I'm just interested to talk more about it and use that background that I have in marketing and in social media just to color the perspectives of maybe the parents on
Yes.
LinkedIn.
So are you millennial or are you Gen Z?
This is a great question. I don't know the difference. What are the
I don't
guidelines?
know where it changes over. I think it changed over somewhere around the around 2000 or something, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. So you might be on a cusp somewhere. I don't know. I don't know your age. You might be on a cusp somewhere, maybe just on
I'm
the
99, 1999, so I
yeah.
might
Okay,
be
that's the year I
on
got
the
married.
edge.
I got
Oh, wow.
I got married that year, and I was 27. Making me feel really old. I think that might be on the cusp, maybe. I don't know. So you
I think
might be
so.
like a late millennial, still a millennial. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but you're somewhere on the cusp there. I'm a
Yep.
Gen Xer, so you're certainly in that generations after me. So that's the thing. And a lot of people who listen to this podcast and watch this podcast
Mm.
are Gen Xers or over. And so I suppose where would you like to start? What do we need to know? What do we need to know about social media and about the internet? What are the things that parents just don't
Mm.
understand?
Where to start? I think the way that the social mediums themselves are designed is that they want to keep you hooked. So the idea is that every day, every year that we exist on these platforms, they're trying to push the envelope. And the things that are getting posted, um, you might, as a parent for a child that has a phone, might have no clue the kind of things that they're seeing, and they're not necessarily things that are illegal or immoral, but just the most bizarre, mind-numbing things that the overwhelming majority of children have not been prepped to be able to understand.
Mm.
So there's a gap between, there's an educational gap, I would say, and that's the thing that's missing from schools, from the education system.
Mm. And so when you like it, obviously we've all heard of porn on social media and violence and things like that. That's a concern that people have, and I don't know if parents fully understand how much their kids are seeing that as well. But what are you talking about? Something different to that? Then what are you talking about?
The porn's a big one. It's not. It looks a little different on social media because you can't have full-on nudity.
Hmm.
But it's not just things like that. It's things like the online gambling culture that kids in early secondary getting hooked on because they're hooked on sports and they love watching and they love betting at lunchtime, and um, it's like you say, the violence as well. Um, it's very outlandish opinions
Mhm.
that they might not have heard in their family or
Yeah.
at school, and they're not they can be so strange that they're enticing. And if you don't understand that other people have different backgrounds and different upbringings, it's easy to get caught up
Mm.
caught up in online communities where they're echo chambers, right? Everybody agrees with the same thing
Yes.
in a subset of the internet, and um, yeah, that's why I say it's not necessarily illegal content. It's just things that are it's just a sea of ideas that is,
Yes.
is hard to make sense of.
Yeah, and look, I didn't even think of online gambling because it's just not my thing, so I just didn't even think about it. But and that's the thing too that I don't understand, because I know you were just talking about sport there, but the other
Mm.
thing actually that parents have concern around, and I hear that, "Oh, they shouldn't be so concerned, blah, blah, blah." I don't know the answer to this, but gaming online. So the games themselves may or may not be a problem, but maybe their access to messaging within the games is a problem. To give me a bit of a I had the last game
Mm.
online, well, the last game I played on a computer was Leisure Suit Larry. And
Oh
he
wow.
he used to play that with, like, I think it was the can't remember if it was, I think it was the little discs, the 3.5-inch discs, and, it would stop and you'd have to put the next disc in, and it certainly wasn't on the internet, it was just on your own computer.
Oh wow.
So that was the last time I played a computer game, so I have got no idea. So just treat it like you're talking to an idiot, because honestly, I have no idea. So just tell me a little bit about, is there concerns about the games, or is it more about the messaging in the games? What's going on there?
Mm. Gaming, I will say, is not something I have a lot of exposure to in my own social media algorithms. I think the biggest thing that I can see is not so much the gaming, but it's the streaming culture. So
Mhm,
it's very popular. It's a very popular um, pursuit for a lot of people, influencers, to
mhm.
stream themselves playing a game.
Yes,
And there have been several internet celebrities that have come out of that, not necessarily because of anything in particular, but just because they're funny to watch as they play.
yeah,
Um, Again, one of the things that parents can't quite wrap their heads around: why are you watching someone else play a
play a
game
game.
that you
Yeah,
could play yourself? Um, but yeah, I suppose there's scope there for some strange ideas and some strange content. But I think by and large, um, at a surface level, there's some crazy violence in a lot of the games. Not that
yeah,
that's anything new. I mean, since probably I can't recall. I don't know my video game history too well, but it's always been around. It's always
yeah.
been around.
Yeah, so
Yes,
violence is one of the issues in there. But I do think that there is a messaging aspect as well, though, isn't there? That the people you're gaming with can message you, and that can be an issue for who's getting in contact with you and who you're talking to.
that's true. That's true. There's definitely potential for, I suppose, stalking and harassment. But not even that. Even just some of the things that get said online. I mean, there's a whole subculture of memes about if the group chats got leaked from this particular game,
Mhm.
when the boys, were playing when we were teenagers, we'd all be in prison.
Yeah.
And it's the language, it's the culture,
Mm.
but maybe not the game itself, but like you say, the messaging component.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there was always, like, I was hearing some, oh, I can't remember, it might have been on, someone's podcast the other day, it might have been Chris Williams and someone's podcast, and there's a couple of guys talking about this, and they were talking about, look, hey, if you guys in the locker room or guys in the pub or whatever, there's always been, like, historically, I think if you recorded guys in those situations, whatever they said, it could be used against them in the future, because there's just like that bro talk, whatever, which is one thing. But I suppose this is that on steroids, because it's a lot of it's anonymous, so people say all sorts of things, and there's some bravery about being behind the keyboard, or as opposed to being in person, that you might not say something in person, or even if you did, it's a small group of friends that you're with, as opposed to online. It's a lot more people will hear what you're saying. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's the biggest irony, right, is that when people are anonymous, they are who they really are. So they can say exactly what's on their mind, and
Yeah.
they don't have to have any restraint at all. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So the anonymity is what kind of brings out the, I don't know, yeah, like you said, you see who they really are, or just them sort of trying to play some character or be, I think a lot of people, it's like I'm bigger and braver, and they're online and they, it's that macho thing that they do as well. Is that
for
part of
sure.
it?
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. The anonymity
Yeah.
is freeing in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose from that point of view, look, I'm not a parent. I can't, I talk about just what I learn about, but I would
Mm.
just say to parents that some of the stuff that you've been talking about, really a big thing is what it comes back to for me is that really, when I was growing up, we used to sit down and have dinner at the table together. We didn't have phones then, so we weren't playing with our phones. The phone was a thing on the wall, you know,
Yeah.
and we used to talk about our day, and we used to talk about things. So if there was an election, we would talk about that, or if something happened at school, or I think one day there was a fire at my school, whatever, we talked about that. But if you talk to your kids every day and you talk to them about just the world and some things in the world, whatever you feel age appropriate, but if you get them into having conversations about, well, these are our family values and these are why. But other people have different values, and this might be why. And that you're going to be exposed to this in the world. Because I think it's like, we kind of understand that to a certain degree, but I think that we don't expect our kids to be exposed to those sorts of things maybe until they leave home, or until they get to like they're in high school or they go to work or whatever. But with online, they're going to be exposed to it as soon as they're online. So if those kids are online when they're 10, then that's the point at which they're going to start to be exposed to those ideas that maybe they just not ready to deal with.
Absolutely. And you can do all you can in your power as a parent to educate your child and to be around them. But then you can have, as soon as they get on the bus and their classmates show them something, or they get to school and their mates are talking about whatever happened online, it's it's pretty clear that you can only shelter them in the very few minutes you have with them basically every day where they've got your attention.
Yes.
And then it's open season. So you really have to make sure that, yeah, you communicate, um, and you educate on the wide web. The danger is if you don't talk to them about things before they see them, you are the second impression. And
Yeah.
I mean, exposure to certain things online is getting younger and younger for children.
Mm.
And through no fault of their own, it's just the content that gets attention. And so it gets
Yeah.
pushed to everybody. And if you don't beat it, you're coming second place, right?
Yeah, what you said there is actually really important, is that if you don't get in first, yours is the second impression. So the first they get is whoever random person out there is, and it could be good or it might not be. But
Mm,
if you get in first and you're sort of saying these are our values and this is why we believe in this, and this is and this is what being a good human being looks like, and this is what being a good
mm,
person looks like, and this is what being, and even to the point of, I think that some of the stuff I mentioned to you before we started, that anyone who watches this, who listens to this, will know I've been talking a lot about adolescence, and I know you haven't seen that yet, but, uh, in that, there was this whole kind of, it was about the dating scene, or a little bit about that, and, this boy had been rejected, and so he's what they would class as an incel these days, although really, aren't all 13-year-olds incels? Because incel is involuntary celibate, right? And we wanna hope that actually all, well, not involuntary, because we kinda just wanna hope that they just are celibate. Let's just put it that way, but certainly, the majority of 13-year-olds are not up for that, not ready for that, shouldn't be doing those things, and so they would be anyway, but just these days, 'cause, incel's the word that they use sort of as somewhat of an insult, but, um, they were talking, again, as a podcast I was listening to the other day, I'm trying to think if it was Chris Williams, I can't remember who it was, but they were saying that, like, don't we need what we do need to do is teach children about, maybe at school, when they, they do the sex ed or whatever, but maybe they should do about dating. Maybe they should do about online dating. Maybe they should talk about what sort of person you want to be. Like, it's not as simple as who do I want, but it's who do I have
Mm,
to be to get that person. And so, what does being a good partner look like? What does being a good boyfriend or good girlfriend or whatever? What does that look like? What are the expectations, and what are the expectations on you? And
yeah.
and what's considered normal? Because even just things like uh, I've seen young pop stars, female pop stars, say that they think that getting strangled is normal because they grown up seeing that sort of stuff online. Now, no one in my generation thought that was normal. I mean, my
Mm,
generation still thought that having hair in private places was quite acceptable, right? Let
yes.
alone this crazy, crazy town stuff that these kids are being exposed to. But maybe we need to be like, as awful as it might have to be having these conversations, but we actually do need to teach children about what are normal expectations, and what are healthy boundaries, and what does a healthy relationship look like, and can you choose, what can you choose or not, can you say no, blah blah blah. But I suspect that with some of these young people, boys and girls, if they're being exposed to that stuff, which is way beyond their understanding,
Mm.
they're actually going to be, you know, frightened and freaked out about partnering up as well. Is that sort of do you think that's part of what's going on?
Potentially, potentially. I think online dating is a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
School and education definitely has a part to play in that in terms of getting people to socializing well. But I think it comes down to the example that parents set in their marriage. Everything starts at the home, right?
Yeah,
And
starts at the
if
home.
what they're seeing if what they're seeing their parents do as a couple, if their parents are together and in a happy marriage,
Mm,
if what they're seeing does not match with what they're being fed online, then they'll have to choose. One of those things is healthy and one of those things is not.
yes.
And I think it's probably not enough just to lead by examples. You have to, communicate at the level that the child is at. Obviously
Yes.
not too much detail, too young, but um, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. We're not
Yes.
perfect, and you shouldn't go out there expecting to find someone as good as what you might see on social media, or if you have, comparison to these superstar athletes or whatever, or
Mm,
supermodels. It's not realistic,
yes.
and or I suppose it is if you're basically willing to sell your soul to a lifetime of injections and supplements and
Mm,
um, Botox.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's the difference too. Like when I was growing up, you were probably going to hook up with someone who lived in your town, maybe went to your school, or maybe
Mm.
someone you met at work. I met my husband at work, but generally we met people who were kind of local. And
Yeah.
our competition was our kind of local group of people, really. Okay. And we weren't competing with Instagram models or this or that. And they did have, I grew up in the time of the supermodel, so the Claudia Schiffers and the Elle Macphersons and the Christy Turlingtons and all that. But it was very clear that, like, I wasn't competing with them. Like, they were going to be dating the other supermodels or the rock stars or whoever they were going to be dating, and I was going to be dating a regular guy. And so even though they was there and we saw them on the cover of magazines, and you might have bought a lipstick because you wanted to look like them or whatever, you knew you couldn't be them, and you knew you were still, your dating pool was the people around you. But now that people are comparing themselves to all of sort of this Instagram stuff, and I think kids are growing up now. So we didn't have cameras. Like, we had a camera, but
Mm.
your family might have a camera, and it cost you a fortune to get the film developed. So you get a film developed once every 6 months. So and they're all bad photos of all the heads cut off and stuff, right? Whereas today, kids are growing up with like cameras in their pocket. And so they're looking at themselves a lot more, and they've got all these filters and all that. So we didn't really grow up looking at ourselves. You'd look at yourself in the mirror before you left the house, but that was it. So we also didn't have to obsess about, well, do I look like that Instagram model, or do I look like that influencer on TikTok or whatever? We just weren't affected as much by or, the TikTok influencing and stuff, we were affected by the kids in the playground and maybe a little bit what we read in Dolly magazine, but that was pretty much it. That was what we were exposed to, and that was our world, and that was so much simpler. But now we're looking at ourselves through cameras and kind of seeing all these influences, and it's a very different world.
Yeah. And this is why it's so dangerous for young girls because they see, I mean, I don't have studies to quote off the top of my head, but I know it's in terms of that comparison, that is more common in, young women
Mm,
who are seeing these things and they're inadequate and they go to extreme lengths to get the validation that they look like that other girl that they see online.
yes.
Um,
The other
yeah,
girls who
there's
actually
just so
don't look
much.
like that as well. But most of the time, they don't even look like, or if they do, they've had extensive stuff done, but a lot of them don't look like that. It's filters and makeup and all the rest
It
of it.
is.
Mm,
It is. And that's the other thing that is not just a problem for the younger generation, but for everybody, is that people, the what's the word? I suppose the unpolitical correct way is everybody's VS radar in terms of seeing things that are real or
yes,
that are clearly altered, clearly AI, clearly touched up, um, is terrible. Generally speaking, I mean, how many people? The amount of education we do on scams and phone calls from Nigerian princes, and we
yes,
all fall for it. And it's there's a big gap between where we need to be to actually. I mean, it's critical thinking. This
yes,
is what kids need to understand from the young age that you do not believe everything you see,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
have to be able to spot when something is not real.
And that's the issue with being exposed to it at a younger age, because if you don't get exposed to these things till you're older, see, I didn't see any of the I didn't grow up with the internet, so all this stuff came to me when I was
Mm,
older, so I'm able to look at it and go, "Oh, yeah, sure, whatever." Right? I can look at most of it and reject most of it or just laugh at it or whatever. But
mm,
if you're 70 years old, that's maybe not possible, and so you're seeing it and you're believing it, and apparently even now, I hear that people go to plastic surgeons. They're actually not just in my day, you take a picture if you're going to do that, you take a picture of your Elle Macpherson or someone, right? So I wanna look like her. But
mm.
now they actually wanna look like kind of anime versions of themselves. So they don't
Yeah,
actually wanna look human. They kind of it's this weird AI kind of vision, this non-human vision of how they want to look, so it's pretty messed up in my opinion.
yes, yes, and that's the I am not too familiar with the supermodel scene of the 2000s and the 90s, but from what
This
I
is the 80
understand,
this is the
it was
80s and
the 80s.
90s.
Forgive me. Um,
It's way
but
before your time.
yes, the pendulum has swung back the other way, though, in the sense that it's not the super thin. I mean, I know Kate Moss is famous for this kind of cocaine thin figure.
Yes.
Um, I think, again, I don't have stats on this, but generally speaking, women don't necessarily want to be super thin anymore, at least not everywhere.
Mm.
And so that's where you get that exaggeration of wanting to be bigger in certain places and smaller in others.
Oh,
And
yeah,
you can't physically do that.
the Kardashian thing, like, how can you have a waist that small and big boobs and a big butt? You can't do it, like, it's just not possible. No one has that.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, well, very few. And then the ones that want it will pay, thousands and thousands for it. But it's just not. Um, but that's what the kids don't understand. It's not the end of the world if you don't look like that person.
Yes.
And if all you see is people adoring this person that they don't even know. I mean,
Yes.
none of these people have a relationship with Kim Kardashian, but they feel so indebted to looking like her and aspiring to be like her.
Mm.
Um, Big
Yeah.
problem.
I remember when I was younger and I first noticed that, like, women who were whether they were supermodels or whether they were actresses with Academy Awards or whatever, who were kind of the people I admired when I was younger. When they first started, boyfriends cheated on them and they got divorced and things like that, it was quite shocking to me that, oh, like, they don't have a perfect life. It's not all and it's not all perfect. No one has anything perfect. It's just you're able to make it look like that online, but it's not perfection for anyone. And when we're looking for that, we're looking in all the wrong places, aren't we?
Absolutely. And that's the issue is that you almost don't settle because if you just scroll through here for 5 seconds, you can see there's better options.
Yes.
There's so much more out there that if I just wait a little bit longer, if I just, this. partners around me that are potentially really good matches. But I know there's more girls out there. I just have to get out there and fast and train at the gym and um, yeah, endless comparison.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, it's like the girls who sort of going off and getting flown over to, I don't know, the UAE or somewhere for parties with, sheikhs and princes or whatever, that sort of on yachts, whatever, girls looking at that sort of stuff. That wasn't even a thing when I was younger, but now there's this online world and girls are comparing, like, looking at that, looking for towards that. People are looking towards that as their goals rather than, like you said, just looking around and just seeing the person around, people around you who are more likely people who, for the most part, not saying that obviously you can be whoever you want and lots of things work out. But generally speaking, the people who you grew up near and around and whatever have similar values to you, and it's a lot simpler. It's a lot simpler way to go long term for most people is to pair up with someone who is, similar values and from a similar place. But obviously, it doesn't mean you can't do that differently. But yeah, the idea of meeting your love match on the other side of the world online and I don't know, turning out to be the best thing, not necessarily.
No, it's completely unrealistic,
Yeah.
and I mean, it does happen. You can always. That's the thing is, you've got to be balanced about all of this. The opportunity to meet people and to network and to find different communities is huge now, and it's not necessarily all evil.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just you have to understand that just because you see things a lot doesn't mean they're normal.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's
you
all.
just said something there that's actually really important, finding communities, right?
Mm,
Because what we are looking for online, what we look for as human beings is we look to be part of community. And when we're in school, it's, our school friends, whatever, or our university friends or our work friends. But it's also, online, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people we relate to. Now, if it was me when I was younger, and still I do that now, I connect with, and I think you're a musician, so I connect with music stuff, right? Not a
yep.
musician, but I just really into music. So a lot of my connections are people who like the same bands, or they might be the
Mm,
people in those bands, or whatever it is, similar music. Or it might be other people that I've got similar interests. I've got lots of connections in the natural health industry, right?
yep.
So many of my friends are all naturopaths or nutritionists or whatever. Uh, but so we are looking for community. We're looking for people to relate to, and I suppose it depends on where we're at, how vulnerable we are at the time, what our headspace is, as to what communities we might end up getting it, ending up in or being attracted by. And they could be a community that's really, really supportive, or they could be a community that is quite the opposite. So I suppose that's the thing. It could be amazing. It could be great. It could be a community that supports you and pushes you to be the best you can be, and all of those things. Because there's, I suppose, to me, my comparison is right. So there's the Jordan Petersons of the world who pushes you to be the best you can be and tells you to take responsibility and make your own bed and think about, well, if you want a partner, well, think about what sort of person you are as a partner. Maybe start there, right? So there's that kind of community where you could go and find out someone who just says, okay, well, you do something about it and you take responsibility and you make yourself the best version of you.
Mm,
There's other kind of things, I suppose it's the Andrew Tates of the world, or or
yeah.
the incel community, whatever. The incel community, basically, it's kind of a weird thing actually, that is a community where you can sort of go into this community and say, well, women are all horrible and they're all mean, and let's just join up together and accept that we'll never have a woman, and there's no chance that we'll ever have a woman. So let's just hate on them and let's just join up together and be, inverted commas, losers together or whatever. Or the Andrew Tates of the world, who, he diagnoses some of the issues in the world quite well, but his solutions aren't great. And his way of speaking to and treating women, and there's all these influencers that talk about, how you can trick a woman into dating you and all this kind of
Mm,
stuff, which is actually what came up in adolescence as well. That the
okay.
boy the boy thought the girl had shared nude, or like a topless
Yeah.
photo, and it had gone around the school, and she'd been shamed because of that. And so this boy approached her at that time to go out on a date, because he thought that she'd be feeling low and feeling like a loser, and that because she was low, he might have a chance.
Right.
And then she rejected him, and he actually killed her. So sorry, spoiler alert, but that's pretty much sort of right from the beginning. It tells you that that's what happened. Uh,
Uh-huh. Okay.
so that's that kind of incel thing of all that kind of predatory kind of. It's a difference between hey, be the best you can be, and be who you are, and be kind, and you'll meet people, and someone the right person might want to date you, and here's a way that you can might trick a girl into dating you. If you shame her and then go in for the kill.
Yeah. And I mean, those are two schools of thought. I mean, from Peterson to Tate, right? But I
Yeah.
think what's potentially more dangerous is the people that are just 1 or 2% off. So you can you can go down the extreme route, or you can find a community where the overwhelming majority of the opinions are values that you hold, but there are a couple of things that are off that you just don't agree with.
Mm,
And because you grow in that community and you learn to trust those people, you can end up taking on some pretty extreme opinions
yes.
as a package of being part of that community. And it's not necessarily, I mean, I don't know too much about the it's called the manosphere or the kind of Andrew Tate circles.
Yeah, the
Um,
manosphere, yeah.
yeah, but I think you have to also think about there is value in everything. Um, and, people agree and disagree with both of those people. But um, ultimately, you have to look at what's online and you have to make up your minds.
Mm,
You have to you have to adapt to the community, but you also have to make sure that you're not, how do I put it, invaluable but not too malleable.
yeah, it
Because
it goes back to that critical thinking you were saying before, which is why it's important that your parents teach that to you and your teachers teach that to you, that critical thinking. Because you shouldn't really like no matter what community you're in, if you agree with every single thing, you might wanna question that. Because
exactly,
as human beings, we don't all agree with everything. I'm sure if you and I sat down and got going a conversation, we'd agree with a whole
mm,
bunch of stuff and then would find a topic that we just didn't agree on.
yeah,
And that's fine, and that's healthy, and that's normal, and we're able to kinda do that and go, "Oh, okay, all right, fair enough." We
mm,
either figure out a way to agree or we just move on, right?
yeah,
But that's actually really healthy, but I think what's happened and this is actually and I know that we're kind of a bit short on time, so I won't go for too much longer, but I suppose this is the algorithm thing, right? So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that because essentially we're going to get back whatever, it shows us whatever the internet algorithm, the social media algorithm wants us to see more of the thing that we like.
yes,
So we tend to be in that echo chamber. And so if you're following the Andrew Tates or whatever you're following, you'll see more and more of that. And so because that's all you tend to see and we're in the echo chamber, then we start to think that's how everybody thinks and we start to take on all of the views. So tell us a little bit about the algorithm and maybe what can we do about that? Is there any strategies that we can do in regards to the algorithm?
I think at a basic level, you're right in that um, it shows you what you want to see.
Mhm.
So by spending a fraction of a second longer on one video than the other, it will show you more of that. It doesn't lie. Um, it doesn't suggest things that you will completely hate. It might suggest things that are kind of outside of your scope of what you've liked and interacted with. Um, it's controllable. You can wipe it. I think a lot of people don't know, and I'll put up some stuff about this probably in the next week or so. All of these things can be wiped and reset
Okay.
on every platform.
Okay, so you can reset your history on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, you can reset the suggested content so that
Okay.
you start afresh. Um, you can do it every day if you really want to. It's
Okay.
a feature that not a lot of people know. Um, but it's sorry, Fiona, remind me what your original question. I've lost track.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's all right. It's about it is about the algorithm, and I think so. One, you said that you could potentially wipe it, and what we will do is we'll make sure that we put in some links to you so that people can go and find you and they can see you talking about this in more detail. But the other is, I think the other day I saw something that you showed on Instagram that you could click on it and say, "Show me less of this," or "Show me more of
Yeah,
this," or something. So how does that work?
Yeah, so you can choose interested or not interested on certain pieces of content, um, and slowly, it's a much slower thing, but you can train it on what you want and don't want to see.
Mm,
Problem is, firstly, not a lot of people know about that. Secondly, it requires a lot of willpower to be disciplined enough
yes.
to actually say, I really don't want to see this stuff. You can blacklist words as well. Um,
Oh, so you can
if
blacklist certain words and say, "I don't wanna see any content that has this word in it."
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh
Okay.
yeah. I don't know if that extends into speech or if it's just what's in captions and hashtags,
Okay.
but you can definitely certain topics. If you hate a particular brand or whatever, you can just put Sephora, and you'll never see anything from Sephora again.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's you need to have, I suppose, the conversation with, or kids need to be told this is
That you can do that.
completely within your control. It's not, you are not at the mercy of social media, provided you're diligent about it
Yeah.
and you can understand when things are getting out of hand.
Yeah. Yeah, so essentially, you have to know that first of all, what you're seeing is not the whole world. It's just a little fraction of what they think you're interested in. And secondly, you have some control over what that looks like, about what you see. The other thing that I encourage clients to do, I just encourage them to watch more of the things they want to see. So I had a client who was seeing a lot of
Mm,
stuff she didn't want to see on Instagram. So
mm.
I got her to start watching. I always joke because lately I've been watching capybara videos, and because I've been talking about them and watching them, oh my god, I get so much. Every time I open up my phone, it's capybaras.
Yeah, there you go.
I think I've become an expert on capybaras. I know everything, but but that's cute. They're just cute, right? So I just see this cute little
Mm,
animal. And the thing is, if you actively go on, I had this client who was, I got her to, I think a couple of times a week, I was getting her to send me cute videos. And the reason I
mm,
was getting her to send them to me is because I was making sure she was looking at them, and she was getting, like, it was her, like, she was changing her algorithm by looking at them. So I said, I
mm.
want you to actively look for videos that make you smile, that make you happy, that feel good, and I want
Yeah,
you to send them to me so I know that you're doing it. And what I've noticed is most of my content now is capybaras or it's cute videos and stuff. So, you can change it just by what you look at.
absolutely, absolutely. You have a lot more control over it than you think.
Yes.
Um, it's just, yeah, it's just having the discipline to control it,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
tough.
and so knowing you can control it, learning how to do that, knowing that you're not seeing everything. It's not a balanced view on anything, and also just, like, I think what it comes back down to is, these are discussions that parents have to have with their kids, and schools probably should have better discussions about some of these things, and you've really got to decide when you're going to introduce your kids to these things. But even if you're not giving them a phone or giving them the internet, they are going to be
Mm.
seeing things at school or on other friends' devices, so you still need to start some of these discussions, even if you're really careful about what you're doing with your own child. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It is not something you can completely guard against at all.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of, it's not a matter of protecting them per se. It's a matter of equipping them with the right knowledge.
You just cut out a little bit at the end. So you said it's a matter of not so much protecting them, but protecting them with knowledge. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, just equipping them with the right knowledge, making sure that they know.
Equipping them with the right knowledge so that they know how.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like this is the world they live in. So rather than just try and completely protect them from it, how about equip them so that they can learn how to live in it? That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
that's it. It's that first impression, right? If
Yeah.
you can explain something to them before they see it online, I mean,
Yes. Yeah. They
you
before you
have a
can
much
see it.
better chance of giving them the right idea or helping them see things with a more balanced view than when they'll see it delivered by someone who doesn't care for their well-being.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So that's probably a good place to leave it. But is there anything else that you would like to add, or do you feel like that's a good place to leave it?
I think it's at the end of the day, it comes down to what happens at home. There's education has a role in terms of what you get taught at school and how
Mm.
you manage all of these things, but it comes down to good parenting. You have to be able to um, have the conversations and have the courage to tell them what your values are.
Yeah.
and this is what we believe as a family. And they can make up their own mind later. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Gotta talk to your
be
kids.
open.
Talk to your
That's
kids,
it.
teach them your values, and gone are the days, and this isn't a thing that came up in adolescence, but gone are the days where you could be sitting there and the kid's in the bedroom on the computer and you don't know what they're doing, and you don't understand it, and you don't understand, "Oh, Instagram, oh, it's this thing, I've never heard of it." I know, like, whatever, you can't not know, unfortunately. It's just not an option.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, I will put your links in the bio, but in the, show notes, but look, just where can people find you, just if they wanna find out more about this from you?
Yeah, I think for this kind of content, my LinkedIn is probably the best place. So
LinkedIn.
Michael Furcciniti on LinkedIn, put the proper spelling in the description somewhere there.
Yeah, you'll have to
Um,
check the show notes for the spelling, and also I'll put a link for the LinkedIn there as well, but, I think, you've been sharing some interesting content, so, yeah, definitely if you're a parent or just you're interested in this topic, it'll be worth following Michael on LinkedIn, so we will put, check the spelling on the show notes or just go to the link in the show notes. So, look, thank you so much, Michael, I really appreciate you coming on today to talk to me about this.
yeah, thanks so much for having me.
This is a podcast where I like to have real conversations about things that matter. And I think that it was a really good conversation about something that really matters a lot right now. So I appreciate you. And thank you for everyone who's watching and listening. Please like, subscribe, and share. I see that when I read the details in the back end, it tells me that 80% of the people who are watching my content or listening to my content are not subscribed. So please subscribe because it makes a big difference to how many people get to see and hear this content. So I appreciate all of your support, and I'll see you again next week. Thanks. Bye.